You're listening to an episode recorded during the time Innovation Fuel was part of University Canada West. We are proud and grateful for the work we've done together, and we want to thank the university for being in our podcast. We are now excited to continue the journey of Innovation Fuel into its next chapter. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Innovation Fuel, business podcast by University Canada West,
bringing you fantastic stories for accomplished entrepreneurs and key industry professionals. Let's explore the entrepreneurial world through local businesses and our university community.
Welcome, Azrah Majin-Savin, CEO and co-founder of Syzl, to another episode of Innovation Fuel. Hello, Dave. Hello, Azrah.
Hello, Glory. Yes, and welcome to another episode of Innovation Fuel, brought to you by University Canada West. We are here, both of us here in Vancouver. We have a guest all the way from Toronto, where it's nice and warm, and it's freezing cold here. We want to get into a discussion today. We have a very special guest that has a lot of experience in dealing with something that's happening with us today. And today is International Women's Day. So all the women out there, happy International Women's Day. And before we get into our conversation, we got to know a little bit about our guest. Azrah, please tell us about who is Azrah.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on. Who is Azrah? That is a crazy existential question. I will try and narrow it down for you all. So I'm Azrah, like you said, CEO and co-founder of Syzl. We've been doing Syzl for just over 2.5 years now. I know we'll get into what we do. We are like Airbnb for kitchens. And we're going to have a lot of fun talking about that. But prior to Syzl, I've had a lot of experience, really breadth and depth of different industries. Dabbled in tech, worked at LinkedIn, worked at WeWork, launched markets for them. Prior to that, worked in the entertainment industry at Warner Brothers, MGM, sold Pancake, lived in New York, LA. So the full gamut of experiences, and kind of have some crazy stories along the way. So really excited to be here and kind of dive into some of those things.
This is International Women's Day today. Both of us know it wouldn't be easy for us to stay here because this is a very difficult journey each woman has to go, professional woman.
Yeah, it's funny. I was on a panel the other day at the Women and Gender Studies Institute here in Toronto, and they asked me something very similar. And it's one of those things you really have to think about. And I think in some ways, you know, when I was in school and looking at the world around me, it wasn't that long after 9/11 when I was really trying to figure out my career. What does it mean to be a woman in not just our society, but a woman of color? What does it mean to be a visible minority? Who wants to be in leadership? And I think for me, one of the things that really came up was, okay, where are the conversations happening that women are not part of? Where are women not at the table? Where do we need to make strides? And I think that's really also what's led some of my decisions and the companies I chose to be part of in the industries is, okay, if I want to make significant impact, I have to learn what these industries are like. I have to learn how to be able to speak the language. I need to educate myself so I can make real, long lasting impact and change. And that's kind of led me to where we are today is I don't think I'd be an entrepreneur. I don't think I'd be supporting the businesses that I do today if I didn't make that decision, you know, way back when I was an undergrad, that this was a path I wanted to undertake because you didn't see people like me at the table.
Azrah, you've been in some pretty hefty companies. We talk about like women in tech is a big one because we've seen some stories about women being in tech and being quite a challenge to be in tech. Tell us about your journey.
I'm really fortunate as a woman in tech, especially in Toronto, to have had some really, really strong female advocates and mentors. The companies that I worked at, and I'll take LinkedIn as a great example of this, I had female managers. There were really strong female advocacy and ERG groups that didn't just say, oh, it's about supporting women in tech. They actually went and did things. They made sure that we had mentors that weren't just lip service. And that's rare and that's hard to find. And so I really commend that. And I knew that coming in. A friend of mine who had talked to me about what it was like to work there, she had said the same thing. It's like, hey, at this company, there's a lot of women who support one another. And that's the biggest thing when we talk about women in tech and some of the horror stories that we see. And I've heard horror stories from other women that have come from other companies and all the things that happen. If you do not have women at the top, women in leadership who can advocate, who can open the door, it's not going to happen. You have to have women, again, and I'm going to say this till I'm blue in the face, women have to be in the rooms where the decisions are being made. That's what's so essential. So I think I was fortunate in some of that regard, but I know some colleagues and some friends who were less fortunate. And when they've created their companies, that was the big thing that they thought about.
Absolutely. I can resonate with that one. So for example, there is no woman in the board, in the leadership team. They really don't understand what challenges you're facing every single day. They make decisions that really doesn't work for us, and we're left alone. And yeah, I can absolutely resonate with that one. But as an entrepreneur, not only you have to sell your products, but you have to sell yourself as well. Especially as a woman in color that both of us are, what are the challenges you face as entrepreneur?
The visibility part is very, very challenging. Women get 1.9% of all venture funding. Women of color get 0.3%. Already, you're looking at an extremely small group of women who get funding to even support their businesses. That should not be the case, right? It's really shameful to use that word, that it's 0.3%. Right? So when you talk about being a woman of color in entrepreneurship, making sure that you are visible, that you talk about these things, that you get on stage, that you represent your company and show that it's possible, that even with those kinds of percentages, even with those kinds of odds. I'll tell a story that Syzl and we were on stage at Collision Conference last year. We won Collision Conference. It was incredibly exciting for us. The number of LinkedIn messages and emails I got from women of color who were founders or who worked at tech companies who said, I was so happy, so excited. One woman said, I was in tears because I've never seen someone who looks like me win that kind of award on stage. I've never seen anybody who looks like me even present on a stage like that before. And that was really moving and inspiring that I can be a trailblazer in that way. But there's so much work to be done. And I want to live in a world where I don't get those kinds of emails anymore. I don't want it to be something that's so out of the norm.
You talk about the work that needs to be done. So what work needs to be done? Where do we need to go? What needs to happen?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of implicit bias that happens. And I know there's been HBR studies about this. What are the types of questions that women get asked in venture capital conversations versus men? And then digging into what that looks like for women of color. And it's very true, right? Women are not asked about, okay, let's talk about the big picture. Let's talk about how you're going to overcome the competition. It's what are you going to, it's talking about being risk averse. It's talking about, what's going to happen if Google comes in. It's not giving women the opportunity to talk about the big scale, big picture things that as founders, that's what we're doing. That's why we're here. We have our vision, we have our plan, and we have our numbers, and we have the receipts to back it up. But those are not the questions that are being asked in the rooms, not all the time. And so I think that's a really big thing when we talk about change, is being incredibly cognizant of the types of questions we are asking women and how that may be different than the questions we are asking men, and noting and taking a real hard look in the mirror about that.
Yeah, definitely. I can see some question they ask me when they want to hire me. Definitely, they will not ask from a man, for example, as a mother, what our challenges is going to be for me or my limitations, This is something that, but never ask a woman, so is there any limitation for you? No one ever asks that question, Never ask a man, so is your wife going to help you? But they are going to ask me, is your husband going to be supporting for you in career? But never ever anyone ask a man of these questions. We are making changes every single day.
Exactly. We're showing that it can be done and that you can do it with a family, or you can do it regardless of all these reasons people are telling you that you can't, right? There's all these assumptions around even gender roles in relationships and in marriages. And it's like, will your partner support you? Again, why is that a question? In my life, it's of course my partner supports me. How would I be in this position if I didn't? But why does that need to be said? And that's one of those things for sure.
Absolutely. I want to know that why start this business? It's Airbnb kitchen or food is a little bit tricky. So how you start with that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first part is that from my personal background and the background of my co-founder, Both our parents were immigrants and refugees. The fastest and easiest way for immigrant communities to make money is by selling food. That's how you stay close to community. That's how you keep your culture. God knows, in undergrad, that's how I ate. I ate on those $10 plates and I kept it in my dorm fridge. And that's what's part of the community. And the sad thing is that most of these businesses can never scale because they're in a home, and that's very unhealthy and illegal and all of those things. And so then what? You're going to remortgage your house to put down a down payment and try and figure out how you're going to get loans for a restaurant. And it's extraordinarily predatory. We see the failure rate of restaurants left, right, and center. So how can we do more? How can we be better? And that was something that always kind of stuck with me, being part of this community. And then in my professional life, I worked at a company where I did shared real estate, right? I worked at the largest shared real estate company in the world, right? Open markets for WeWork. And that, again, it gave me that background, that skill. It was like, how come no one's doing this? How come no one's doing this? How come no one's tackling this particular issue on how it doesn't relate to office space? It relates to kitchen space because it is tangible physical product. How do we reutilize existing assets? And so that's what really led to the inspiration for Syzl. My co-founder and I, we spent a year in research because we've both been in tech a long time. We've seen a lot of solutions made for problems that maybe not be as big as we think they are. So we wanted to really be sure. And we learned that the problem Syzl is solving is actually much bigger than either of us thought. And this is such a massive, massive undertaking of people who participate in the food gig economy and have nowhere to expand and nowhere to go. And that's what kind of led us on this journey to where we are now.
You start off with the real estate element, and you realize that there's the opportunity because these empty kitchens were out there. They weren't being serviced. And the opportunity for these individuals that wanted to make a little bit of extra income on the side. So how did you find those individuals? How did you connect those two pieces together?
So especially those coming from immigrant and cultural communities, and God, I saw you laughing when I told you about the food on paper plate. The maker community is huge. The largest gig economy in the world is in the food industry. But the ones that we focus on, thoughts, work. So, designers, web developers, that kind of thing. We focus on predominantly male-dominated industries. So driving for Uber, listing on TaskRabbit. But again, what are women doing? What are seniors doing? What are those who, have very limited dominant language skills? So maybe, English is not their first language or French is not their first language or the dominant language of the country that they're in. Probably making food, and they're selling it on WhatsApp and on Facebook Marketplace. And that's how they're able to make that additional money. So for us, that wasn't the issue. It wasn't about makers. It was talking to kitchens and saying, hey, you have empty space sitting there. It's depreciating in value, whether you like it or not. Like, to take this to a business or economics class perspective, you have depreciating assets. This is a really tough industry. 60% or more of restaurants don't break even. It is getting worse and worse and worse. The loan repayment was really hard. Okay, what can we do about that? And here's this way that, okay, you can input someone to use this space while it was not being used. I think a really big differentiator between ghost kitchens and what we do, this is empty. And it's not about your Uber Eats Friday night delivery. This is about every other meal of the day. This is about your pasta sauce maker. This is about your cereal bar manufacturer. This is about your spices. That's who's using Syzl. That's the other meal that we forget to think about because there's been so much hype around our Friday night delivery. And we forget that there's so much more to food gig economy than just that.
I have questions about health and safety issues. So that, to me, as I understand correctly, any chef, they have their own health and safety license, and the kitchen has this health and safety license. But so how do you make sure that everything is in the place?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that. So again, when we talk about research and we talk about real people and real problems, this was something we wanted to solve for right away. And so when you are cooking, you need to have your food handling certification. A lot of times you don't know where to get that. We have Canada-wide certified partnerships so someone can take that test in our app, get trained on the spot, right? They can take the exam in that experience, which is amazing. Again, it's trying to make it so that it is safer and healthier. Because a lot of times in most jurisdictions, not every single person in a kitchen space needs to have their health and safety certification. It's maybe 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 or just the owner, again, depending on the jurisdiction. And this is, again, Canada-wide. What we say is everyone needs to have it. We're actually making it safer. We're making it healthier by saying, okay, this is what needs to be done. Because, again, home cooks are not doing this. We're trying to empower and enable this group of people that, hey, there is so much out there. There is so much revenue to be made. There is so much business to be done. How do we make this easy for you? And so again, even the groups that we work with, multiple languages. It's not just English and French, right? You can take this test in Spanish. You can take it in Urdu. You can take it in other languages because we see the value and importance of that.
So you make sure they have license, and then the rest of the responsibility and liability are there. So if there is any food poisoning happening, you and your app is not responsible.
No, we are not. We're not liable. That's the big thing, is that we are not liable. What we've done is we've made sure, just like if you even think about a restaurant today, right? If a restaurant, they all have their food safety certification from the government or jurisdiction, right? You can see those certificates when you go in to eat. Their chefs have the food safety handling. Yes, things can still go wrong. So what we've actually done, we have one step further. We have gig economy chef insurance, first of its kind in Canada. Because again, the restaurant can have insurance, but they don't want their insurance to be dealt with. God forbid someone got sick. Now what are you going to do? Again, it's making it easier. It's making it accessible by saying, okay, someone gets sick, that's product liability. Someone breaks something in the kitchen. Great. Let's cover that. There's business interruption insurance, all of these things to really make sure these gig economy workers are able to go in and it's seamless. And this did not exist for them before. That's why they cooked at home, because there was no alternative. Or you spend an arm and a leg at these purpose-built spaces, which are amazing. But if you're doing this on the side, if you're a side hustler, you can't afford the $30,000 a year for that co-working kitchen. That's not a budget that you have.
So who's responsible of a supply chain? For example, I want to make Persian food in a restaurant, but who is going to buy my ingredients? Who's responsible for ingredients?
You have to source your own ingredients the way you already have. People are already doing that. What we're doing is formalizing a black market industry.
How would you define your value proposition to this?
It's making it so, A, you're able to scale faster. So for makers, the people actually making the product, if you have a catering gig and you're doing it out of your house, you have no fridge space because that's your home space. You are worried that public health might knock on your door. You don't have the equipment. So it's going to take you 10 times longer, or you have to decline. Now you can rent a kitchen for 3 hours. You have a 16 tray oven. You have 15 different burners. You're able to get in and out of there in a very short amount of time. You're certified. You can provide that certification to the person that's giving you that contract or that gig. And the restaurant or the bowling alley or the high school or the daycare or wherever else you're cooking out of, they got money that they would have never seen otherwise. And that's the benefit to both sides. When we're talking to makers, it really is access to equipment. I was talking to someone today who makes an amazing chili sauce. And she was saying, I can sit there at home chopping garlic, or I can use an industrial chopper and I'm done in an hour versus taking a whole weekend. It's those things that matter. And before, it wasn't accessible. You'd be like, oh my God, I spent thousands of dollars. Oh gosh, like this is too much. This too much is overwhelming. And now it's like, okay, I can spend $25 and I can get everything I need. Like, it's game changing. We're really changing the economics of this.
You're just operating the app, right? Who are your key partners? For example, I don't know, what do you outsource? What kind of services you outsource or a strategic alliance for yourself? So who are they?
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of the app itself, we're really proud of doing everything in-house. We developed it in-house. We produce in-house. Our customer service is in-house. Again, this is entirely done through our company. Where we build our strategic partnerships and alliances is in our customer acquisition, in working with schools and working with economic alliances and working with the government. We are partners of these groups. I'm not trying to do the Uber model of move fast and break things and be crazy with, because this is food poisoning, right? To your point, this is health and safety. This is hot oil frying. This is big machinery. You have to go with the law. You have to go with the right training. So working with our government partners, working with our food safety partners, that's what's critical. So those are more the alliances when you talk about our partners. That's where it really lies versus in the tech. That's where we've been able to do everything in-house, and we're really proud of owning all of our technology.
Where does it go next for you? Where does scale look like? You've won Collision. You've got this nice big pot to deal with now. So where do you go next with this? How do you expand this model?
Yeah, so now it really is about scalability, right? It's making sure that food makers can have access to the kitchens and equipments that they really need, and taking this beyond just the markets that we're in. You're absolutely right. Now it really is a scale conversation. And how do we do this efficiently, effectively without sacrificing the quality.
Yeah, I have another question because it's your model, as you say, yes, you maybe sound like Airbnb for kitchen, but it's different, absolutely, or like Uber. I'm thinking about what is your biggest cost, operational cost or marketing cost?
Well, today it's building the app itself, right? It's our developers. I'm not outsourcing my developers to a team in Brazil or in Romania. We have this talent here in Canada. We are paying Canadian developers to build this product. So we have our IP here. That's a big cost. For us, it's worth it, right? Because again, my co-founder and I have been in technology a long time, and we've seen the challenges of outsourcing your code. If you don't own that IP, it's a very slippery slope. Someone can hold your code hostage. The advice I give to a lot of folks who are starting out in entrepreneurship, find a technical co-founder, develop in-house, because you cannot afford for your tech to not be yours. And that really gets into funding and other conversations down the line. That IP has to be here. And that's a pride thing too, right? So we can say that we're truly a Canadian company.
And so what is your, the structure? So there's subscriptions, membership. So imagine I want to host a party and a big party and I want to cook and I want to go to kitchen. How does it work?
It's pay as you go, right? Again, our entire model is based on flexibility and we have an incredibly high retention rate because of that. We do not charge kitchens to list. I do not charge in that way. We make money when our customers do. We take transaction fees. And what that does is that builds trust in an industry that has very little trust. It builds trust with a group of people that are inherently very skeptical. The restaurant industry is very challenging. So by us showing that, hey, we'll only make money when you make money. That's it. That really is what set, I think, our business model apart and has allowed us to thrive. And then again, like I said, have the retention rates we do, have the churn rates that we do because of that trust that's come in.
That's really interesting.
Do you see that technology starting to look, because as these restaurants come back to full capacity after COVID, because we know some of them are coming right back up again. Do you see your model looking at opportunity costs, meaning opportunities, meaning that, hey, these are dead times for your kitchen. How can we leverage that application and the tool to fill in those dead spaces in? And even possibly down the road, do you see an opportunity where you start building your own kitchens and starting to rent those spaces out, or not rent those, but I guess in the SaaS-based model, rent those out?
So for the first part, that's the whole thing. We are trying to optimize kitchens because so these are stats from pre-COVID, when things were really great, when only 10% of restaurants did not break even, 8 to 10 hours a day were not being utilized. That's the average. That's still happening. So unless you're, Joey, it's not working, right? So that's where we do see it being successful. We want the world to come back into restaurants. We want this to really succeed. And we're here to help with all the extra costs along the way. So yes, we do want to optimize and be really great with that. In terms of us, we're not interested in owning assets. That's really been strong for us. We don't want to have the assets, right? We're here because that goes against why we started this to begin with. We're here as a reutilization company. We're here to take on assets that already exist. There are more than enough companies out there, and they've done a great job, that have built purpose-built spaces. BC has a ton. They're awesome and they're successful. Great. Do that. I don't want to play in your sandbox. I want to help everybody else who did not see this as a market opportunity for their space because they never went into it thinking that they could make some additional money on the side from this.
Very close to the end of this episode. Do you have any challenge for students?
That's always a tough one, right? So we've talked about a bunch of things. We've talked about entrepreneurship. We've talked about women. So I'll bring it back to the International Women's Day theme here. The challenge for the students is to think about the questions that you ask. Think about your own implicit biases. Think about when you're doing your projects, when you're working in groups, when you're in interviews, when you get the opportunity maybe to support students who are in other years than you. What are you asking? What is your expectation for risk for men versus women? What is your expectation or understanding of someone's spare time? And to really challenge that with yourself. So that would be my challenge.
Perfect. Dave, any final question?
Learned so much today. Awesome. Thank you for the insight into where we need to go with women and really tapping into getting more women mentors and women in leadership and women at the table and making those decisions. And the great work you're doing at Syzl, so exciting. When is it coming to Vancouver? We want to hear about it. So let us know when it's coming to Vancouver. Happy to support. Our students are hungry for this opportunity.
Amazing. Thank you again so much for having me.
Thank you, Azrah. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Thomas Reynoso. That was another episode of Innovation Fuel. Thank you for listening to Innovation Fuel. We are on all podcast streaming platforms, Google, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Visit our website at www.upenwest.ca/Innovation Fuel. Also, follow us on Instagram at innovation_fuel.